So you've finally seen Tenet and you're left wondering, what in the actual Don't worry, I've got you covered, BD here, and if you've seen Tenet and you just can't wrap your head around what exactly happened, when it happened, or how the time travel of it all happened, I'm gonna break it all down for you in the simplest terms I know how. So first, let's talk about time travel before we talk about the end of the movie. Think of time as a straight line. All matter and streams of consciousness are moving as independent lines along that straight line. We'll call that the dominant timeline. As individuals, our experiences and memories can only progress within our personal timeline, although they may already be laid out in the dominant timeline. As our personal timeline grows, we are consuming experiences as time passes. In all instances, a personal timeline can only operate in a direction which is parallel to the dominant timeline. This was symbolically represented in the opening sequence of Tenet when two trains were passing the protagonist, each going in opposite directions. In Tenet's mythology, the algorithm is able to reverse an object or person's entropy in time. So while their personal trajectory continues to move forward from their own perspective, the line which represents their personal timeline now goes in the opposite direction on the dominant timeline, overlapping with its previous self. This line will have already happened in the dominant timeline and would be seen to anyone moving in the traditional direction through time as being backwards, but for the person or object, it is happening in their own real time. When you reverse your entropy again, you would now be moving through time in the same direction as the dominant timeline. This does mean at any given time there could be at least 3 versions of yourself in existence at the same time, even though you're not supposed to interact with yourself according to Tenet's time travel rules, and it's not even really time travel, it's just kind of coexisting and experiencing along a timeline. This would mean there are multiple versions of yourself in existence in the timeline until you reach and surpass the point in time in which you started to go backwards.
What do you think we're seeing?
Throughout the entire journey, you continue to age normally. So if I reversed my entropy right now and continued in that direction for an entire 6 months, then set myself back to a traditional entropy forward in line with the dominant timeline, when I arrive back at this very moment, I would be 1 year older despite no time having passed from your perspective at all.
Jesus Christ. That's Jason Bourne.
As your line grows, it is new to you, and this brings up the question of free will, because it would seem to imply that the dominant timeline has everything already mapped out for us. We just have to experience it for ourselves. So in Tenet, there has been a lot of traveling forwards and backwards through time, and probably more off-screen than on-screen. Major spoilers follow. As it turns out, John David Washington's character, only named the protagonist, is the man behind the curtain of everything that happens in Tenet. This is explained when Robert Pattinson's Neil reveals that he was recruited by the protagonist. This happened a long time ago for Pattinson's character, but it hasn't happened yet for the protagonist. At some point after the movie, the protagonist will meet Neil for the first time and recruit him to do some time copping and send him back in time to save his own life several times over. Not only did Neil rescue the protagonist at the end of the movie when he took a bullet for him, likely knowing full well that that was going to happen, but in the opening sequence at the opera, it was Neil who rescued the protagonist from getting shot while he was trying to rescue people in the crowd. This is indicated by a little orange keychain we see on the backpack of a character in the opening scene, the scene where he is already dead in the bunker, and the final sequence where he walks away from the protagonist. After the movie ends, the protagonist and Neil do an unknown amount of saving the world from what might have been, and this culminates in Neil reversing his entropy to the point where it is a first encounter with the protagonist from the protagonist's point of view, but merely another mission for Neil, which he was instructed to go on by the protagonist at some point in the future. Remember how Neil knew the protagonist never drinks on the job and wanted a Diet Coke, not soda water? Is it all clicking yet? Christopher Nolan thinks he's so clever!
Well, now it makes sense.
What did you think of Tenet and the use of time travel or traveling through time in the film? Share your thoughts in the comments section or send them my way on Instagram and Twitter at BrandonDavisBD. And for more news and updates, head over to Comicbook.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm BD. I'll see you there.